Okay, good morning. I want to specify at the beginning of this press conference that says this is an ongoing investigation. And I want to start off with saying things are not always as they appear.
Hey everyone, Carolina Girl here. Welcome back to my channel. I hope everyone had a great week. The weekend's finally here. Weather's going to be crazy here this weekend. Tomorrow we're going to be looking at, I think, about 80 degrees. And then on Sunday it's going to drop back down to 50. I mean, isn't that crazy? That's why people get sick, because Mother Nature can't pick a season. I come to you guys tonight because I want to talk to you about plea deals and expert witnesses. Many ask why Gypsy received the plea deal she did, and I figured I'd offer my take on it, and you guys can let me know what you think. Prosecutors and DAs depend on their conviction rate. They must have a strong and high conviction rate to stay in office. Originally, my thought was Patterson didn't think he could secure a first-degree conviction. Now, before you guys come at me, please just hear me out, okay? Now, this is before everything started really coming out in this case. Let's go back 2 years to when Gypsy was just getting out of prison. Gypsy didn't go to trial, and even though Nick did, there was minimal evidence that was released in this case. I think it was just the crime scene photos and the text messages that were released in Nick's trial. And there was a few things that was leaked, but for the most part, once he was convicted, he went into like the appeals process, and the case file was sealed at that point until he finished the appeals process, which didn't happen until this past year in 2025. So once he finished his appeals process, then that was done. The case was officially closed, and the case file's basically been released. Into the Weeds podcast and Straight Out of Context. They both, I know those two, especially Into the Weeds podcast, they submitted for the whole file. And I know Straight Out of Context submitted for some of the file too as well. I mean, and they had quite a bit of files for their request. So it's all coming out now. But like I said, Gypsy was charged with first-degree murder. And at that time, back in 2015 to 2016, she had a lot of support because people thought she had been abused. Gypsy's defense was, her mom medically and physically abused her. So I felt like Patterson had a 50-50 shot securing a conviction. Going to trial, all it would have taken was for one Bree or one Sheena to be sitting on the jury, and she could have literally walked, no pun intended. I want to share a few of Gypsy's prison emails with you to show that she did have a lot of support, and then even in prison, she had a lot of support. So this is a whole page, basically. You can see where the date, it's all outbound. These are all outbound emails, and they start in April. It's April 6th, April 1st, June 4th, June 4th. These are all 2019, and these are all like generated email messages that she copies and pastes to all of the supporters, anybody that emails her. If I was to email her, I would get a hello, friends and supporters, like, I appreciate you for reaching out. And it was either one of those or, hey, I appreciate you reaching out, please contact the governor for my clemency type thing. If you got one at all, you might not even get a response, because most of the time she didn't respond to you unless you were mail or offering her something. Or she wanted to clap back at you. So I'm not going to read all these, but I just wanted to show you. These are basically, like I said, copy and paste responses. So she couldn't even, all these people. I mean, and let me tell you, she had a lot of people. The first 100 pages, and I'm going to show you the first 100 pages. This is like page 38 of 1,090, but the first 100 pages were messages that's like support, people offering her support, and then she would send them these generated messages. And these people, a lot of the times, they were abuse victims reaching out to her saying, hey, I'm going through this. I kind of know how how you feel, and I just wanted to reach out to you for support. And can you imagine that kind of a, they're opening up their heart to her because they look at her this poor abused, victim, and she sends back this, she has no, there's nothing personal here whatsoever to that person and to address them. And so she just gets these like automated, you just get this automated response back. She had one person go off on her, and we'll get to that email. I have it. And so here's one of her supporters that didn't get a response back. Said, "Hi, Gypsy. It's crazy. I wrote to you plenty of time just to say hi and make conversation, but you won't even respond. But you respond to people that talk negative about you and put blame on you. When I felt bad for you and just wanted to get to know you, it's okay. I'll never write you again, but I hope these 10 years move fast for you." So they were a little disappointed, and they were still somewhat nice to her. Here's another one of her supporters that didn't get a response back, but she, they were still kind of nice. Said, "Hi, Gypsy. I sent an email to you a month ago. No response at all. Did it go through? My name is blank, and I live in Bolivar, Missouri. I told you about my schooling in psychology and my support for you. Just a little sad I didn't get a simple thank you email like you send most people." And so here's my favorite one of them all. This girl, she told Gypsy about herself. So she says, this is inbound, the top one, says, "You are a fake ass bitch. I supported you and sent you some of my stamps, and your greedy killing your mama ass never responded. You are pathetic." So Gypsy responds, "Hey, that was extremely rude and uncalled for. I'm sorry if I didn't respond to you because I have a life. I don't sit around here doing nothing, responding to emails all damn day. I go to school, I have a job, I have responsibilities that come first. Like I said to another girl who bitched at me for not replying, I apologize for my lack of response, but this is the situation I have. My close friends whom I trust, and I keep to them. And by the way, fuck you for bringing my mom and crime into your hate mail. Haters could kiss my ass." But I just wanted to include those emails because she did have a lot of support, and I wanted to show the kind of response that she sent her supporters, the ones that did take time out to, to reach out to her and say, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know I support you," and you get this generated response back. So I want to play a clip for you of Gypsy on Breeze Live several months back talking about her plea agreement and her sentence. And again, this was, I want to say, probably around maybe October or so. So, like I said, it was a few months back.
You know, if people still want to believe that just because I have microdeletion, and I had that diagnosed in 2012, if people
11 girl, 2011 girl.
No, okay, whatever,
You see?
around that time. If people want to still stick to that, that's their opinion. But at the end of the day, those same documents that they're citing to prove their point, those same documents was reviewed by the judge, reviewed by all the court system that my case went through. So they're not cracking some kind of case that has already been reviewed, if that makes sense.
You know what, Gypsy?
Actually, I can guarantee you that the judge nor the prosecutor looked at her medical records. They didn't go through all her medical records. It would be like you or me going through her medical records as far as the judge was concerned, unless the judge has a medical degree. He wouldn't be going through her medical records. This is what the judge would, consider when a plea agreement is in consideration. He would look at the nature of the charges, which of course, it's murder. look at her criminal history, which I don't believe she had one. I mean, she shoplifted, we know, but I don't know if she was actually ever charged or convicted of a crime, or even charged with shoplifting. I think it was just self-admitted through her book or whatever. I'm not quite sure, but I don't think she had a criminal record. And so he would look at the case circumstances. Well, the case circumstances were she's saying she was medically and physically abused. And so, that's the stuff that, he would take into consideration. And the defense, would have been asked to present mitigating evidence in the case on her behalf. And so here's the explanation of what mitigating evidence is. Mitigation evidence is typically introduced during the sentencing phase of a trial, particularly in criminal cases. Its primary purpose is to establish the presence of mitigating circumstances that can lead to a more lenient sentence. This evidence aims to show that the defendant is less deserving of a harsh punishment than the prosecution claims. And so the types of mitigation evidence: personal history, mental health issues, character references, remorse, and rehabilitation. And so, her mitigation evidence was her claims to, Munchausen by proxy. So this is a clip. Let me find it. This is a clip from Mommy Dead and Dearest of Rod and Christy going to meet with Gypsy's attorney, Mike, to go over what he will present as mitigating evidence.
Basically, each one of these paper clips is some medical record where Dee Dee essentially lied to the doctor about something. Mentally, Gypsy is behind. She's at the level of a 7-year-old on mother's information. And this is seen. I managed to talk to one of her previous providers. She specifically remembers Gypsy Rose and mentioned that her previous neurologist clearly reported the fact that Gypsy does not have muscular dystrophy. Analyzing all the facts, and after talking to her previous pediatrician, there's a strong possibility of Munchausen by proxy, with maybe some underlying unknown etiology to explain her symptoms.
That right there was Gypsy's keep her out of prison for the rest of her life card. This right here is also what you always see Bree show you. Anytime she's talking about her medical records, and she always likes to bring this little clip up right here. She got it from Mommy Dead and Dearest. She acts like she took it like with her. She seems like she acts like she took it with her phone, like she's trying to make it look like it's a screenshot, but she got it from Mommy Dead and Dearest. And this is Dr. Bernardo Flasterstein. And I can remember he's also in Mommy Dead and Dearest, and he gives his interview. And the reason why he thought that there was Munchausen by proxy, because he had Gypsy stand up and she could hold her weight up and her muscle tone was normal. But I've got a video, and I think most of the internet now has a video showing Gypsy admitting that she kept it from Dee Dee that she could walk. For 13 years, she kept it from Dee Dee she could walk. And she had her own reasons for doing so. And I went over that in my last video. I believe it was my last video. But yeah, she had her own reasons for doing that. Oh, no, it was my possible motive video. So it's a couple videos ago. But I think she had her own reasons for keeping that from Dee Dee for as long as she did, until it served her no purpose. But that's what made Dee Dee look crazy to all these, to this doctor, to all these other doctors, because she was hell-bent determined. She had this demon child telling her, I can't walk, I can't walk, I can't walk. So what is she supposed to do? She's telling these doctors, my daughter can't walk. And so now here it is in the file. It was noted. Dr. Bernardo Flasterstein never did anything about it. He never acted on it. He just noted it in the file. And that was, like I said, Gypsy's keep me out of prison for the rest of my life card. right there. So this and the fact, let me see, that when this case first happened, Gypsy and Dee Dee were just missing, right? So authorities were looking for a sickly, wheelchair-bound girl. And so this is what they were looking for, right? But that's not what they arrested, or that's not what they found, right? No, that's not what they arrested. This is what they found and arrested. And so obviously something's not right with that picture, right? Because she's not in a wheelchair. She's not looking all weirded out for the most part. She's standing up, she's walking. Doesn't even look like the same person. So obviously something wasn't right, So this is a clip of the Greene County DA explaining the plea deal.
This case is unusual and extraordinary. Gypsy Blanchard endured nearly 2 decades of systematic, purposeful abuse at the hands of her mother for the purpose of fraud. And so by amending to murder in the second degree, we were able to both hold Gypsy Blanchard accountable for the murder, which was not justified nor excusable, but yet account for those mitigating circumstances.
And so this is Gypsy accepting her plea deal.
This is, sorry, I didn't realize they were going to bring you out immediately. Okay, this is the new charge, Class A felony of murder in the second degree, and that acting in concert with another knowingly caused the death of your mother by stabbing her. Okay.
This is in the case of State of Missouri versus Gypsy Rose Blanchard. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Would you state your name for the record, please?
Gypsy Blanchard.
And how old are you?
I'm going to be 25 years old at 24.
Okay. And how far did you go in school?
About the second grade.
How do you plead to the Class A felony of murder in the second degree?
Guilty.
The court finds that there is a factual basis for a plea of guilty. The court accepts defendant's plea of guilty and finds defendant guilty thereof beyond a reasonable doubt. She's to be sentenced to 10 years in the Missouri Department of Corrections. She'll have to do 85% of her sentence before she's eligible for parole. Let's go off the record.
So this is an excerpt of her book stating that the clip we're going to watch here in a second was filmed right after she accepted this plea deal. She accepts a plea deal or a plea agreement, and then she does an interview for national television and states she wasn't completely honest with her attorneys. I mean, I think at this point everybody can see she wasn't honest with her attorneys. So it says, my public life really began when my family and I participated in the HBO documentary Mommy Dead and Dearest, which aired in May 2017. An independent documentary filmmaker named Aaron Lee Carr contacted Dad, Christy, and Mike about doing a documentary about my childhood and interviewing me. There had been so much press coverage surrounding Nick and me. It felt good to have an opportunity to explain my side of the story. They began production as I was awaiting my court hearing before the plea deal, but I remember vividly that I was interviewed hours after I accepted the plea deal. And this is that interview, folks, right here. This was what she had to say at the beginning of it.
This is actually kind of the first time I've been honest. Besides being honest, with my attorneys. Even that, I haven't been completely honest with them. So. How would you?
Even then, she hadn't even been completely honest with her attorney. She had just accepted her plea deal here. And she admits on national TV she wasn't even honest with her attorneys. I mean, that shows the kind of people that we're dealing with here, folks. I mean, sometimes you just have to look at the source. And this is, this is what we're dealing with. Next, I wanted to share her plea agreement paperwork with you. Now, I'm not going to read it, but I will leave it up for a few seconds so you can grab screenshots if you want, or you can come back later to do so. Rewind it back. I'm just going to kind of explain what each one is. This one is just stating that she's pleading guilty here. So it's a Class A felony, second-degree murder. This one is the plea agreement. It's basically just stating, that they're amending the charge from first-degree murder to second-degree murder. The defendant is sentenced on that day for 10 years to the Missouri Department of Corrections, and she has to serve 85% of her sentence. And it looks like she's going to have a $68 restitution fee, is what it looks like. Here is just like an amended paper of the first paper that we saw. And so it says that she is basically sentenced and judged on count 1 of a Class A felony for second-degree murder, 10 years in the Department of Corrections, and she does have a $68 restitution fee. And she was sentenced and judged on the 5th day of July, 2016. And here is just basically the order, or the order stating that they amended the charge from first-degree murder to second-degree murder, and she pled guilty to that charge. And this is pretty much kind of like the same thing. This states all of it, that she was sentenced for second-degree murder. It's murder, first-degree felony, and it was reduced to, or amended to, second-degree murder, and how many years she got, and 10 years in the Department of Corrections. She pled guilty, and that's about it on that paper. And so, like I said, you can come back if you want to get these documents, and you can just kind of pause and get the screenshots or what have you. And so finally, I wanted to discuss the expert witnesses with you. And so this is a clip of Bree during one of her lives a few months back. And please forgive her language, because she's just kind of rude, insulting, and vulgar. And so, like I said, just kind of please forgive her language.
Mute you for a second, Sheena. Is that you? Yeah. On someone's panel saying, she was all confident. She's like, I have the medical records and I proved that Munchausen by proxy was not the case. Girl, you have 300 pages for one. You don't have thousands. You have 300 pages. For two, I can promise you one thing. The expert in Munchausen by proxy the leading expert of the United States of fucking America. Okay, sweetheart. I don't know where you live. I don't think you live in the United States of America, but here, are you the leading expert in wherever you are? I don't know. I don't think you are probably, but the one here looked at all of her records, not just 300 pages like that you have, My Little Pony 333. But he's looked at all of them, and he said it's one of the most severe cases that he's ever seen in his professional opinion, as the leading expert. So until you get that status, yeah, you might want to sit down, but you're over there on Wikipedia like a weirdo.
So this is an excerpt from Mommy Dead and Dearest of the Munchausen by proxy expert that Bree was referring to. Now, Gypsy's case didn't go to trial, so technically she didn't have any expert witnesses, but this guy appeared for the documentary.
As soon as I was aware of the case, I started searching the internet and trying to acquire all the information I could. And it became one of the least difficult cases I've ever seen in establishing this as Munchausen by proxy, which is when people make others under their control either sick or lie about their illnesses or exaggerate their illnesses, all to get some kind of emotional gratification for themselves.
Now, at the beginning of that, did he say that he looked at all her medical records and by his medical professional opinion? Or did he say he was looking at the internet? Let's go back. And what did he say? Because I could have swore I thought I heard him say as soon as he heard about this case, he started looking on the internet. Let me see.
As soon as I was aware of the case, I started searching the internet and trying to acquire all the information I could. And it became one of the least difficult cases I've ever seen in establishing this as Munchausen by proxy, which is when people make others under their control either sick or lie.
Now, that's interesting. I thought he reviewed all her medical records. But all he did was he didn't do anything any different than what we're all doing. I mean, I'm not going to take it away from him. He is the leading expert in the United States of America for Munchausen by proxy, but he sure as hell didn't look at all her medical records. He just said right here in this clip that he got on the internet reviewing this case. He started looking and researching as much as he could on this case as soon as he heard about it. I just want to throw this out there to you guys. You know, when you're dealing with expert witnesses, regardless whether they're giving interviews and documentaries or news or whatever, or some kind of a show or whatever, or if they're testifying in court, most of the time they're going to get paid. So, you know, there is some kind of compensation, like for their testimony and stuff, depending on, you know, the situation. But they're like hourly rates or flat fees, retainer fees. And so, and of course, the responsibility for payment usually falls on the party that hires them. And it could be either the plaintiff or the defendant. In most cases, when you go to trial, both the state and the defendant, you know, or the defense usually have their own expert witnesses. Okay. And they're usually compensated for their time and their testimony, and, you know, not necessarily the testimony, but their time, because usually they have to research the case, or there's something to go, you know, there's something that they have to do in order to prepare for their testimony, put it that way. And so that shows you about them going to court. And this is them, if they were to, like, you know, do interviews, it's kind of like the same thing. You know, they're going to get paid for their time. So this next excerpt that I'm going to show you is a clip of this guy this expert that Mike did reach out to initially to evaluate Gypsy and her case.
Or witness in the court and court system in around the country, different states, and typically evaluate defendants again for mental illness defenses or sentencing, mitigating circumstances in sentencing proceedings. So when I had worked with Gypsy Rose's attorney in different cases in the state of Missouri, Mike Stanfield, and he had contacted me, right around the time all of this happened, and said, "John, you won't believe, what kind of case we have up here. We think it's a Munchausen, by proxy case. Never seen anything like it. Want you to come and evaluate who we think is the victim of Munchausen." That is fair. Mike called me, and like I said, he was, "You'll never see this. This is, a zebra without stripes,
Right.
A unicorn, whatever you want to call it." And I'll be honest with you. I mean, I this is all I do, and
Right.
I've been doing it 25 years, and you don't see Munchausen by proxy or fictitious disorder opposed by another very often. Okay. And I've evaluated some mothers who in family or criminal law cases have been suspected to have it. But to have a full-blooded Munchausen case, it is extremely rare. With that said, though, once Mike had contacted me, about this situation, I have a pretty busy caseload, and I said, "Mike, I'm going to get to it." And probably 3 months later, I called him and said, "Hey, we're ready." And he said, "Oh my God, we just came up with a plea deal. You won't believe this." And, it was somewhere around, like, I think 10 years. And he said, "We had to take it." He told me about it. Meanwhile, he did send me the records, which I had started to review. And I've also, admittedly, seen some of these, Gypsy Rose specials, and had looked at some of the discovery, and I was aware of the medical history of her, or what was, I would say, in much part fabricated by the mother, and also had watched and looked at some of the medical records and the physicians who had treated Gypsy, who had concerns as to a Munchausen case.
So, being Gypsy didn't go to trial, he wasn't needed, but for whatever reason, he shows up in her documentary, Prison Confessions. Now, this is Dr. John Fabian, and he shows up in Prison Confessions. There's only 6 episodes, and he was in the very last one. Not sure what his purpose was for, other than, just maybe for the show, because, like I said, he wasn't needed at that point. I mean, there's really no reason for him to be involved other than, like I said, just for the show. But also here he says that Mike sent him part of the records or whatever it was, and he started to review them, but he never really did. And basically what he's saying is he watched Mommy Dead and Dearest, because when he's talking about the physicians that were concerned about Munchausen's by proxy, excuse me, he's talking about Dr. Bernardo Flasterstein, and he's talking about Dr. Robert Still. Now, Dr. Robert Still was Gypsy's pediatrician in Missouri, and he had concerns, and he actually called Department of Social Services or Child Protective Services, one of the two. I can't remember, but some kind of a protective service up there in Missouri, because he thought Gypsy had been kidnapped. Something felt off to him. I don't think he was suspecting Munchausen's, but something did feel off to him, and I think he was suspecting that Gypsy had been kidnapped or something like that. I can't remember, but that was Dr. Robert Still. Dr. Bernardo Flasterstein, he was a children's neurologist, and so he was the one that suspected Munchausen's by proxy, because Gypsy had normal muscle tone in her legs, and she could stand and hold her own weight, and all of her tests were coming back normal. And so that's what I think. And both of these doctors did interviews in Mommy Dead and Dearest. And so I think that's what he's talking about here. I think he watched Mommy Dead and Dearest. So this next thing that I want to talk about, he has really nothing to do with this case, but it's just kind of proved to you that expert witnesses do get paid. This guy, his name is Kenneth Kinsley. He is actually, it's Dr. Kenneth Kinsley. He is a law enforcement officer out of South Carolina. He's also an expert forensic crime scene investigator. He was an expert witness in the Alex Murdaugh trial down in the Low Country of South Carolina. Alex Murdaugh was accused and convicted of killing his son and wife, among other things. So this was an interesting case. I also thought it was interesting that the witnesses here that the defense brought, or that the witness brought, oh goodness, that the defense brought in as a rebuttal witness was an expert in the same field with about the same credentials and testified completely opposite of what he testified as. So the defense claimed that there were 2 shooters and the state said that there was just one. So at any rate, I really like Dr. Kinsley and the way he reenacted the scene in court. So I thought it was interesting that they were both experts in the same field, but their testimony was like different, like night and day. And I felt like Dr. Kinsley was being more straight up and the defense witness was trying to, twist it, of course, for the defense. Again, I was just trying to prove that these people are not donating their time. Okay. So this is Dr. Kinsley on the stand.
Are you being compensated for your time?
I am, yes, sir.
And how much have you been paid thus far, and how much you hope to get paid before it's all said and done?
Well, I'm a Baptist, so if I didn't charge something, my friends and family would talk bad about me. But my retainer is $2,500, and I have a flat $100 an hour rate. And when I added it up, I was up a little over 100 hours. But I ended my retainer myself without anyone asking me to do a little over a week and a half ago. And I'm now working off of a mutual aid agreement that my sheriff's allowing me to do that, Sheriff Leroy Ravenel from Orangeburg.
Sure.
So I'm not charging anything from a little bit before last week on.
So 100 hours, $100, is that?
That's roughly, I have expended roughly, not all of it was daytime, but if I take off, I have to use personal leave from work to do this work. So roughly 75, 80 hours I have used of time from work.
Okay. So you've made $7,500, $10,000?
Well, I've spent way more than that running up and down the highways, Mr. Griffin. I've probably been to 20 meetings or so, but yes, sir, if you look at it that way.
Okay. Now, Doug, back to...
So I just wanted, like I said, I wanted to prove that the expert witnesses usually do, they get paid for their time and their testimony. They're not going to work for free. You saw how many hours that this guy had to put into, what he did. He went out to the crime scene and he was, measuring the trajectory of the bullets and just different things. And so he had a lot of time invested in this case. And I guarantee you that these medical professionals in Gypsy's case, if, Bree, she claims there's thousands of pages of medical records. I've heard anywhere from 6,000 to 10,000 pages of medical records. And so do you think these people would go through all those medical records for free? I don't believe so. They even pay jurors to sit on a jury during a trial. It's not much, but they still get paid for their time. So, all right, folks, that does it for me. But you all let me know what you think about this video in the comments below. As always, I appreciate you all. Thank you for watching and for your support. Y'all have a good one. And remember, all aboard the truth train. Choo-choo.
This is a case that we haven't dealt with, and it's because it's so unusual. I mean, it really is an unusual case. What we thought initially may be a victim turns out to be a suspect, and in the middle of this story that is twisted, we think we know who Gypsy is, But once this trial starts, we'll be able to see her life unfold and find out exactly what she was all about.
You make me say,